Okay.
That's much better.
All right, guys. Well, welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. We're kind of excited today because we're getting ready to start some trade shows and we're going to be on the road. So we may be seeing you guys. Might be out there in your neck of the woods. We're going to be in Wisconsin here this weekend, which would be, what is today's date? The
February
8th?
8th.
9th? So the 9th through the 12th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Yep. And then we will come back from there and then return to Minnesota next week. So if you're out and about and you hear this podcast and you want to catch up with us and see us personally, you can catch us there. But right now what I want to do is I want to say a big shout out. And we had someone that almost crashed their car the last time we did a shout out, and we don't want that to happen. So to the biggest Shoon, and that's exactly how he addressed it, is BIGGESTHSCHOON.
Yeah.
It's okay. You get what I'm talking about. You meant what I knew. So anyhow, we just want to thank you because the biggest Shoon wrote in a really nice review and had a lot of good things to say. So we sure appreciate it when you guys do that. The reviews are helping tremendously. We're moving up in the rankings. And so again, make sure you guys are doing the reviews if you haven't. And then also make sure that you're sharing it with your friends. But today we're going to talk about something that is about as timely as it gets and something that we all love, but we differ a little bit on our approaches and things like that. So we're going to talk about shed hunting. And now I'm not talking about the one that's in your backyard. That would not be the kind of shed we're going to talk about. Yeah, that was my dad
That was
joke
a
of the day.
That wasn't even
Do you
worth
have
a
the little
laugh.
thing on the
Wah,
the
wah,
ting?
wah, wah.
Yeah. Come on, Nick. Hit
All
our
right.
audio guy.
You know what? My jokes are no worse than your goofy ass blinking or winking or whatever it is.
A wink
Yeah,
is
wink.
seductive, David.
To who?
Why are you trying to seduce our audience?
Because
You
it
weirdo.
gets them to come back. That's why.
Okay.
I knew he was
Well-
weird. 92% males, our audience.
Here we go. So let's start talking a little bit about shed hunting while Easton does his hair. Okay, so
What is your guys' judgmental mood
let's-
today? Holy cow.
let's
I
talk-
can't even sit here without you guys lecturing me on something.
Okay,
N2 squared over
I'm
here.
just done here.
N squared.
N squared. What are you talking about?
The neck beard.
It's
Okay,
not a beard.
I don't know what he's talking about. Anyhow, so let's talk a little bit about shed hunting, and what I specifically want to talk about is how to find an 80-inch shed.
Like you know how.
It's over because we've never found one.
No, we have not.
Warren's the only one obsessed with it.
Well,
You
I
should have listened to what we did yesterday. You're never going to find an 80-inch shed as long as you're this obsessed with it. Just saying.
What are you talking about?
Me and Dad just did it. And did
Yeah, you're
some-
not persistent. You're obsessed.
Yeah, there's a fine line between
What's wrong with that?
persistence and obsessed because obsessed is not healthy for you. Same reason that my whole entire year was filled with obsession instead of persistence. And you said that I needed to stop being obsessed with it and be okay with the goals.
What draws the line between obsessed and persistent?
When you stop losing the edge or
Not
the
stop losing,
enjoyment.
when you've lost.
When you've lost the enjoyment for the little things, or you get frustrated with things that you normally wouldn't.
What if I still enjoy it?
You had to take a year off because you were so burned out.
I shed hunted.
Yeah, but you
I
didn't
just
shed
didn't
hunt
do
nearly as much.
The same thing that I did. I learned.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about shed hunting because we do pick up quite a few sheds, and I have lived in several states, and I can tell you that shed hunting in those different places is done differently, and some places not at all. And here is one of the places that it's beneficial. I mean, without a doubt, it can be done successfully.
It's really popular too.
It's super popular. I mean, I think but I also would look back and say that I probably missed the boat on, I think, growing up in the East in Virginia, that I didn't go because I didn't think you could find any.
Was
I
there much
think-
that was worth finding?
Yeah, I mean,
Besides a forked horn?
maybe. I don't know. I didn't do it enough because I didn't think they were there. And I now look back and I bet you there were some sheds laying out there that people weren't going to look for, and that kind
We
of
have
stuff.
a little extra encouragement. I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't be shed hunting that much, depending on where I lived. If I wasn't going to find, it's not even about the size. It's about, I like to find antlers. I lose my confidence very quickly when you end up walking miles and miles and you can't find anything.
Well,
Doing it once or twice is okay. After you keep doing it and you aren't finding anything,
I think it's the same as hunting as far as it's all relative. I mean, if you lived in Virginia and 120-inch deer was a big deer, I think me personally, I'd still be stoked to find a
I don't
50-inch side.
I see. I don't think I would have the drive to walk, not the size, the fact that it's going to be few and far between finding any because there's just not as many.
Iowa's a little more like that, you think, though.
Oh, I know because I can't find any.
Well, I mean,
Well, this year so far, but it's early.
I think it's all relative. I mean, like, look at Eddie. Eddie's found a match set already this year, and he's in
New Jersey.
I'm almost said Rhode Island, but it's
New Jersey, I think.
Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey.
Warren's found a match set.
Yeah, I mean, and so what I'm getting at, though, is I think that people across the board, but some of the things that I do think that you could apply that I've learned about shed hunting, I think could be applied anywhere. What's your favorite place to look? What is it that what is it that we look for so that we don't have those crappy walks like Easton's talking about where you don't find any? Because I have a couple things that I target.
How descriptive are we getting on that?
As descriptive as you want, I guess. This is your opinion.
Well, for me, it'd be like south-facing slopes.
That's number one.
Yep.
But
especially on snow years.
Yeah, well, let's talk about why do south-facing slopes, and now we're talking in colder climates where it makes a difference. If you live down in Louisiana or places like that, it's probably not going to matter whether you're on a south or a north-facing slope, if there is any kind of slope at all.
Right.
So.
Well, south-facing, are you going to answer it?
Sure. Basically, it just gets more time with the sun. So your snow's melting first, and it's warmer. I think that, to me, that the deer just spend more time like that on stuff like that. The other thing I've noticed that I feel like is really weird about Iowa is I find very, very few sheds along like river bottoms. And I think is where I got so obsessed with that idea was in Montana. We found all of our whitetail sheds on the river bottom. And then here, I don't find hardly any on river bottoms. And the only thing I can figure is if we get snow, it's just flat, that the deer aren't spending that much time down there unless they're standing food or something like that. And so they're going up onto the hills and at least some topography and getting in things like warm season grasses with like cedars or hedge apple trees near food that is south facing. To me is money. That to me is like, those are the things that I'm like, oh yeah, that I get really excited about. The other thing is I'm just reading sign really. But the other thing, I guess, what I'll refer to is just the other day we went on a walk. That's all it was a walk.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because between four of us, we probably covered collectively 15 miles. Yeah, something like that, and never found a shed.
Yeah.
Now, we had everything going against us.
Also been early, too.
We're early, meaning I think there's only about 30% of the deer have dropped. We were on a day that had still 2 to 3 inches of snow in a lot of places.
Yeah, depending on where you're at.
So it made it harder to walk. Plus, it was a bright, sunny day, and we had a ton of timber to cover.
Yeah.
So because the other one that I would add in there, you covered a lot of what I would agree with, Warren, in that, south-facing, you like hedge apples. I mean, for people who don't have hedge apple trees, or held trees, as you guys call them, locust-type trees.
Yeah.
But
hedge apples and the hell trees were different.
No.
A hedge apple tree and a locust tree are the same tree? Mm-hmm. Oh. Well, that's a connection there.
Learn something every day.
Yep.
I completely thought it was two different things. I didn't think the hedge apple ones had all the huge thorns on them.
No, if you look, they have the locust pods laying at the bottom of them, too.
Huh.
But that type of pasture ground lends itself to a good cover place, it seems like, for the deer. The one that I love is yellow grass. And what I mean by that is like a native CRP type stuff that is brownish yellow. It seems like it absorbs the sun and it melts the snow that's there pretty quickly. And I find a tremendous amount of sheds there.
If it's not too tall.
Yeah,
and I'm real easy to walk by.
Yeah, no, it's best if it's like 6 inches tall, 6 to 8 inches tall, because that's enough that gets matted down, but the antlers lay there, and then you can find it. Otherwise, like you said, if it's 1.5 feet tall, you got to walk directly on the shed to find it. And then my other favorite, though, one of the favorite places to look is a fence line, whether that's from timber to ag, or whether it's between ag or something like that. I find a lot of sheds in the where it's tough to find them in ag fields, and we've all attempted to do it. I don't know how many. Have you gridded a cornfield?
Yeah, it's not fun.
No, it's
Walking row to row, or I use 4-wheeler.
I've done both.
Yeah.
And I still to this day. Now I know you found a shed or two in the cornfield.
I've found quite a few in cornfields. Not a ton and not anything that big. But one thing I do in cornfields is if there's terraces, I'll walk the terraces and the waterways and things like that. And I'm same way. Even if I know there's been a bunch of deer in the corn, unless I have a 4-wheeler or something, I will not go and walk every single row. If I thought there was an 80 out there, I would. But
my favorite and my logical one to walk is not the same. Like my favorite is every time I walk into like when you get cedar patches or like evergreens, anything that's enough cover where they can bed under there is always like a mecca in my head. I'm sitting there like, oh, they've got, even if there's snow on the ground, they have areas where there's no snow, they can bed. It's pretty easy to walk around, walk through. And like yesterday, or not yesterday, but this weekend, one of the ones we walked through, I normally find like 5 or 6 in that section, and we didn't find any. Again, it's early, but that's probably one of my favorites, as long as it's not too many, because I'll see the trails and stuff, and in my head, to make it logical, I'll see the trails going under like all these cedar trees and stuff, where it's like you got to be hands and knees or at least bent down pretty good to be able to get through it. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, if a buck walks through this, at some point, something's going to whack that thing and knock his antler off. And it does not work that way as much as I would like it to. And then the other one so I enjoy walking those, but at the same time, it's like a hit or miss for me. The ones that I really like to do that seem consistent is, I don't know if you guys remember, where right when we crossed the fence the other day, and in the first open, we only crossed one.
My butt, I must have crossed 10 fences, it seemed like.
Oh, well, I'm talking about the first one we crossed.
Okay, I remember that one.
So the first one we crossed, right when you get over, it's the open field, and there's like a little island, tiny. And there's just a few little trees and just like taller grass. I normally every year find 2 sheds in that. And they're not normally match sets, but I'll find 1 or 2 in it almost every year. And it's just an open field where they feed in. It's not ag, but they feed in it, and then they have, I don't know why, they must like want to go bed in it every once in a while. Like where I killed my deer this year, that would be one, like where the little windmill thing is, that I would walk out to that every single time, because for whatever reason it seems like if they're in an open field and they have something they could go to bed in, they do. For whatever
so let's
reason.
talk about, you mentioned that we went early. When and why would you go early as opposed to late, and why would you wait? I mean,
this is partly why.
Because I think there's some people out there that don't do a lot of shed hunting, and they wouldn't even understand what we're talking about.
Well, I think there's one other thing you should address real quick, because I know you and I both said it the other day. You were just talking about walking thick stuff.
Yeah.
Dad and I both said the same thing. We always walk the thick stuff and feel like we're going to find antlers there.
You never do.
I never find them in the thick stuff.
Yeah.
And I have 2 theories. This is going back a little bit further, too. One, I believe deer hate snow. Because when I go and there is snow on the ground, where I find the most sign is always places that there's the least amount of snow.
Yeah.
Which that's where I think your south-facing slopes comes in. Is typically that's going to be some of the first stuff. But I don't find, I'll find beds in snow. But it seems like the majority of the deer seem to be in, if they can avoid the snow, they do. And then it seems like the thick stuff that I'm always thinking I'm going to go through some of that and there's going to be a giant antler laying there. And now I really am starting to believe the deer don't, at least bucks, they don't care to go through that either.
Well, that's what I have the conflict with, is because I heard you say that the other day, is don't like worry too much about the super thick stuff, the like or the easier path. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, that makes sense, because every time I go crawling hands and knees, I never find a freaking shed. Yet I do it every time because I'm looking at a whole trail of tons of tracks.
Right, you would think
it's like I can't get myself not to do it, but I never find the sheds in it.
So if you got 30 minutes to walk, is what we're saying, and you have the choice of either walking the fence line along the agriculture field, cornfield or bean field or whatever it is, or you can go walk the timber for 30 minutes. Neither one, or you've only got time enough to do one. I would skip the going through the heavy timber. not skip timber. I mean, we find a lot of sheds in timber, even though they're harder to find in the timber.
When you add time to it, like if you're doing anything in timber, it's a flat out. You just have to take the time to be able to go back and forth and actually cover it correctly to make sure you're not missing or miss as few as you can.
Okay, so but why early as opposed to, or why later?
That's what I was gonna say. So this is part of the part of what we wanted to cover today was shed hunting and what's right and what's not for shed hunting, for the controversial side. So with that being said, what areas are you, like, is it right to go walk something, or it's early, but you got to get to it for what reasons? Because other people have permission there, because you're afraid of all the squirrels, mice getting to it. What reasons are you going to go walk somewhere else earlier than say something else? But is it right or is it not? Because I know him, he is going to walk as soon as he can certain places. We just did it the other day. I have permission, and we know other people can get in there. And to be honest with you, yeah, I'm going to walk it quicker. I'm going to walk it early because I know that other people can get in there, not to take away from other people, but the fact that there's hardly anybody ever hunting out there, and I'm out there a lot, and I know a lot of the deer. I would like to think biasly that I deserve to find some of those sheds before they do, and they aren't going to do anything with it. They don't hunt them, nothing. So I'm going to go a little earlier in certain situations when I know other people can get there, and I'm not worried as much about like the squirrels or anything else that's going to chew on them.
See, I'm exact opposite. We have a farm that we pick up sheds on that we don't have. No one else is going in there. We're the only ones that can go in there. But I like to go early because the freaking squirrels beat me to them all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, so many of them, and they chew them up bad. And so I like to go in that particular farm early and see, because I do find most of my sheds there in the timber or right on the edge of the timber. And so going in there early, although it definitely, what's the downside, I guess? That's what we need to answer for people is, and the downside is if you go in there, you take the chance of pushing your deer out of there and onto somewhere else where they end up dropping somewhere that you can't pick them up.
Well, that's another thing I was going to ask is how realistic is it, do you think, that going early is going to affect the amount of sheds you're going to find? Do you think that it affects a lot, or do you think that you could walk in there and I'm going to walk in there 5 different times within the next month? I might start early, but they're going to keep coming back, so I'm not worried about pushing them out. Or is it a fact of we're going to wait, because if I push them out of here right now, they aren't going to come back, or you don't think they're going to drop on your place?
Well, I have a theory on that. Is my answer to you?
Oh yeah.
So
I know what we do. I'm just curious.
Right. My theory is it depends on your weather, because if your deer are focused on food, and you have the only food that are around, meaning you have standing beans or you have a food plot that you put in that's stayed in, and the deer are feeding in it, someplace that they're going to appear, right now they're dependent upon that. I believe you can go into that area early and look for sheds and get out of there, and they're going to come right back because they got to have that food. Now, if you have weather like what we're having right now today here in Iowa, and it's 40-some degrees and all the snow's gone and they're not all having to yard up into one particular spot, they can now I run the risk of, if I bump them, they may move 500 yards, may move a quarter of a mile or something, and no big deal. So I would say that weather plays a pretty big factor on whether I go early or not. The other one that can play that factor is if you can confirm that the deer you're looking for has shed, that you've seen trail camera photos of him with half his rack or something, and it's a deer. And I mean, especially if you're looking on public ground, someone else might pick it up. So go early. I mean, it's no different than going to hunt. Public ground is public ground. Everyone has the right to be there. So do you. And then if you have a place where you can hunt that other people might have permission to go on there. But anyhow, that would be my thought process behind the going early as opposed to late, is weather will play on how it affects the deer is going to be, the weather will have an effect on that.
Weather will for sure. I think I have, I guess, numerous things here. One, I guess to answer your initial question, I think that if you have permission, I don't think there's anything wrong with going and walking other places. And I believe that because I do that a lot. So
Yeah.
the number one reason that I would go early is strictly competition. There's enough other people walking that I feel as though you have to go early if you're going to be able to find them. And that varies though. So this is where I think it does get really unique. There is one time that I won't go walk stuff really early, and that is if we've had these years where the weather is really rough on them, and I feel as though that I'm going to cause enough stress that I'm going to actually harm the herd. And it could be places where other people may do that. They may still do that. I personally just won't do it because I don't want to do that to the deer. However, I think that like this year has been a mild enough stuff that I don't really think that you're going to harm the deer that much. If it's harming them that much, they're probably not going to make it anyways. But I would tell you the one thing that is probably that I have a little bit different experience than either of you is I walk 3 different types of property. I walk public ground, I walk permission ground, and then I walk our stuff that we're the only ones that have permission. And I'll tell you the number one thing, in my opinion, absolute bar none, is competition. Because I'll find a decent amount of sheds on public early, not a ton, and then permission ground is usually the worst, actually, producer for shed hunting, and then our stuff is the best. And so I keep a log of every single shed hunt that I go on. I track where the place was, the date, and then how far I walked, and then how many sheds that I found. My average on any of our stuff is usually a bare minimum of 1 shed per mile traveled. Sometimes it's even 2. My average on public is probably like 1 mile or 1 shed every maybe 3 to 4 miles. My average on permission ground it can depend, but I've walked enough stuff that I'll walk stuff that there is just pounded and there should be an antler there, and there's never an antler there. Or there is occasionally when I get lucky, but I think a lot of times it's just somebody else has already walked it. Yeah, and they missed it. I don't run into those patches of 5 and 6 antlers that we see a lot of times, and I think that's just strictly a competition thing, which I don't care. That's people are out there doing it the same reason I am, because it's fun. But I think that there is a huge difference there. If I can avoid going in early, I will every time, because I think you're going to find 2 to 3 times the amount of antlers.
So with that being said, what do we? I mean, and I heard prior to the podcast, you guys were having a little conversation, and this would be a question for everyone out there in podcast land too. What do you think the number of sheds that we find, as far as if there's 100 deer, and 100 deer and 50 of them are bucks, so there's 100 antlers laying on the ground. However big the property you're walking is, how many of those do you think you'll actually find?
10%.
You think it's only 10%? I think it's more than that.
So I'm just trying to think of that
farm
that we were referring to.
I don't know if part of that is because I would like to think it's not because I'm missing them, but partly because 1, they don't live there as much, and 2, because other people can go in there. So I don't have a great.
Okay, so let's just take the farm we were referring to.
Yeah.
Man, I got something in my throat. I think you know the same farm that we're talking about.
The one I cow hunted the other day?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's 40 bucks on there? I feel like that might be a little.
That might be a little lofty. Maybe
I'm going off of
or 30.
If you're thinking
30.
about all the little guys.
But I mean, if he's talking about spikes and fork and horns
every
and stuff.
deer.
There's at least 15, almost 20, probably good deer, like 120 plus.
No, there's probably 30.
Okay, so let's go 35.
Okay.
We compromised. So let's just say there's 35 deer on there. And
35 bucks.
35 bucks on there. And we know a lot of those bucks are kind of on edges. How many do we think dropped on us? Maybe, could we say 50%?
Sure, let's go half.
I was going to say around 15, so yeah.
15%?
No, 15
okay.
deer, so that's about 50%.
Okay, so that means, so then we know that there should be
30 antlers.
30 antlers or so on that. Well, then that would say we're doing really good. Because we find probably
10
20.
to 15. I would say 15 to 20 every year. So that would say that we're finding somewhere between 50 and 60% of what's out there.
Wow. So Well, so if this study is correct, what started
Well, ours is not an official study.
no,
Ours.
well, that's what I'm saying is if where this East and I were having this discussion is some university just did a study where they have a farm, a high fence farm. They know the amount of deer that's there and everything. And I think that it was 400 acres or something, and they were finding 40% of the antlers on there. So either one, they're just terrible shed hunters, or two, we're really good shed hunters, or three, we have no idea the actual amount, and we're only finding.
I genuinely think that like 40, and I'm going off like spikes and stuff too, would be pretty low. Just going off of like when you shot KB, no, we didn't see a ton of bucks that night, but we saw probably 50 deer just in our field. And then if you look down where the other one was, there's like probably 50 or another 50 or 60 that we could just see. So in my opinion, in that area, there's gonna be a lot of.
Well, that's what I don't understand on their study is I feel like, I know me personally, if I know that those antlers are there,
That's my issues. I'm
walking way more thoroughly than because like when I'm walking a place, I'll skip a lot of stuff. And yes, I may be leaving an antler or two on the table, but in my opinion, it's worth spending the majority of my time where I think that the majority of the deer are, instead of trying to find the one or two stragglers.
Well, that's the difference in knowing and not knowing. Because if you know that something's there, for instance, the time that you want to find, we don't know exactly where it's at specifically, but we have probably like a really good idea where it's at and that it's there as long as it hasn't been eaten by squirrels and stuff. So as long as it hasn't been eaten by stuff, you know it's there. You know you got to just keep going until you find it.
We might have the opportunity to do this ourselves, though, right?
What's that?
The
Where we
study,
could do a study?
Yeah.
we are going to do it.
Yeah, maybe.
Do they know the number of deer and everything?
I don't know. I don't know enough.
I'm pretty sure.
I
think he
You'd have
does
to ask him.
because he has sections. So
That'd be awesome. So we're going shed hunting on a high fence place soon, which
for fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
just for fun.
I don't know that
and
we
with
would
friends.
keep 'em or
Conveniently
anything.
going to end up being there.
But hopefully we can do the same study and see what we find. Maybe with experienced shed hunters.
There's a
it'll be
lot that
different.
I would have to read that study and see. Like, did they take 10 guys? Did they take 2 guys?
Yeah.
Well, the number of people would be different
Did they
too.
grid it? You know, did they? What was their goal there? Was just say, okay, we went out for a day to see how much someone would find. Because if you went out one day and you found 10%, and then you went back another day and said, okay, I didn't hit this part of the farm, then another 10%. Eventually, you get. You know, it depends on how hard you're pushing.
Right.
To accomplish. There's a lot of
Well, and I hope that we
possibilities
can
there.
do it without them telling us how many deer are there, because I think that'll give us a lot better idea. Because
then
won't.
you'll walk genuinely.
Yeah, we won't know. Okay, well, we're still missing 15
Right.
antlers or whatever.
What? So if you take everything else we've talked about so far, he just said the amount of people. If you're going to a shed hunt somewhere in just a general area, what is your preferred amount of people that's with you?
Well, it depends. Honestly,
An army.
it depends on.
See, I'm opposite.
It
I know.
depends on my goal. If it's something where we're just trying to clean up every antler we can and we know all of the deer, then I want a lot of people. I want like probably 4 or 5 people that are good shed hunters.
See, that's where I might come into the issue because I would much rather have 2 that I know that, well, yeah, it's going to be a lot more work, but there's the chance of us missing one is a lot less than I feel like, because I hate rewalking, hate it, solely for the fact that I can't convince my head well enough that, hey, I walked this pretty early. There's a good chance that a deer came back and dropped an antler that I missed. I can't
Still
convince
hard.
myself that it's worth that because
Right.
I'm like, I already walked it. So if I know, and with how we track all of ourselves on Onyx, and I put all those tracks together, if I'm looking there and I'm like, oh man, this person already walked it when we were here, I'm gonna have such a hard time walking it again. So I would rather just take the least amount that I know if I'm not gonna have to rewalk this, and go back and forth, and take the time and take the effort and be done with it, as opposed to having a bunch of people in hopes.
Well, because we've taken some other people too, and there's some people that are really bad shed hunters.
Which I didn't think.
So
that
hold on, but I mean, we need to try to help some people, and maybe someone falls in that category, a bad shed hunter. They're not finding any. Are they a bad shed hunter? Are they looking the wrong place? Are they or people are beating them to them. So what are some of the things, if each of us says one thing, because I think there's probably more, we'll go around more than once. What is one tool or one thing that you like?
Do one tool and one thing that you, or like
Okay.
one strategy.
Okay, so what's one of your strategies and a tool that you like to have?
One strategy, Warren hates it, but it's a tip that he gives people, but I do it just the whole time. Your tip is when you get to somewhere where you're really excited and you think it's really good, take the time to walk, take a second, look around, and go slow and don't get too excited. I do that the whole time because I'm paranoid, absolutely paranoid that I'm walking by something. So I walk very, very slow. I stop and I look around, and I walk a little further. I stop and look around, and it takes me forever, but I know that
Feel
in
like
that
you covered
area
it
I'm
very
feeling
thoroughly.
way more confident than just walking a decent pace. So that's the strategy. And then
Okay.
binoculars. I always have them, and I've learned that from him, and I've learned that from the fact of how many times I picked up my binoculars and thought, oh, that looks like a shed, and I look over there, and it's not a shed. But then I look past it, and I'm like, oh, there is a shed, and I didn't even realize I was looking at it.
Right.
I've had that happen
All right.
multiple times.
What about you, Warren?
Look for oddly straight lines. That would be
Oddly straight lines.
Yep. Like I don't look for a whole antler. And I guess odd formations because you could have tines down. But anytime that I see lines that are really straight, it's almost always tines. Because if you look
Or a
around the
rib
woods,
cage. Something
yeah,
dead.
could be. If you look around the woods, though, it's not very often that you see perfectly straight lines. And a lot of your tines are very,
Straight.
very close to perfectly straight. And so I think when you're not looking for a whole antler, you're looking for pieces of an antler, it slows you down and it makes you a lot more detailed in what you're trying to pick out. And I've found that it seems as though my mind picks up on a lot faster. Well, that doesn't seem to fit in here. And I think your eye gets trained. Like I definitely believe that people that are new to shed hunting, I mean, I've been with enough of them now, that in our eyes, it's a very obvious antler, and where is it? And I think that they're just, you don't know what you're looking for yet. And so I think you can get better at that. Tool, I would say, is a backpack. Because if I don't have snacks and stuff, then I want to go to the truck early. And if I got snacks and everything, I'll go all day.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad you guys didn't take either of mine. I thought for sure that one of you would take it because I think the biggest tool that, other than Easton being a tool, I think the biggest.
What is the deal with me today? What
You're
did I
sitting
do?
across from me.
N squared.
I think the biggest reason or the biggest tool is OnX. It has helped me tremendously because we we hit the tracker, and so that I can actually look at something and go, I know I've already walked that. And I mean, zoom in on it and really look, because you can figure when you're looking at a track, you should be able to say that within 5 to 10 yards on either side of you, depending on the terrain, it depends on what you're looking at, how far I saw. It helped me tremendously last year looking for Blade's other side, where, and the same thing is having other people tracking their own, and you get their tracks from them, and then you can say, oh, well, look, all we did was walk over each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be number one. Number two, my method is I love walking with the sun behind me. I don't like walking into the sun. I feel like it just eyes water, and that would go sun or wind. I mean, if you have either of those really strong, and so walking with the sun at my back, and I'll try to intentionally do that. So that is one of the things that.
What about? Because this would be something I'd be interested in. Because I don't like the sun in my eyes when it's really bright, like the other day.
Right.
But what about sunny days?
Well, I just like that day was sunny, and I'm constantly circling around. And when I want to go through the particular area, I would circle around, get the sun at my back, and then walk through it. Because a couple times I didn't know where you guys were. I flipped around and had to come back, and I felt like it cut down on what I could see probably in half, because I was looking into the sun.
When I was going doing zigzags, I found that one way was like, oh, I don't like walking into the sun. And
I would tell people try to avoid at all costs wearing sunglasses. At least dark sunglasses especially, because everything blends together. One of the things that I think can tremendously help, and maybe it's because as I'm getting older, my eyes aren't as sharp, is high definition glasses, or like shooting glasses that have they're not really sunglasses, but they have a reflective. When you put them on, it's almost like you're looking at a movie. Those help. They help me anyhow. Kind of the same thing that it does for like polarized glasses for someone looking into the water. It does change how you can see. I know that sounds crazy that we're talking about being that, a special pair of glasses to wear when you're shed hunting, making sure you have binoculars for when you're shed hunting, making sure that you have on X to go shed hunting. But if you truly want to make those miles worth more, and if you're not in an area where there's just antlers laying everywhere, and we have not had, we've lived in a lot of places. We found sheds in Montana, but they took a lot of walking as well. Even elk sheds are tough to find if you're not looking. You can walk a whole lot more country out there and never find them because they congregate.
Yep.
But when you do
find them, yep.
But that's what I like sun. I mean, as long as it's not super, super strong in my eyes. I know everybody else hates the sun. I don't mind the sun because I find a lot of antlers off of them glaring. Yeah.
See, if I could pick my perfect weather day, it's cloudy and it just rained or the snow just melted, and so the leaves are all matted to the ground. And I mean, then I feel like the sheds just kind of stick up there because they're way out of place.
Yeah.
Well,
I think years like this too, where we've had snow like this, helps a lot because it mats down all the grass and everything. And so then when you go and you walk, you can see a lot further without having to do those little tiny loops.
Yep. And so that's what I'm saying is matted grass, slightly cloud covered day. And I'm like, and now there's only 2 people that I've ever met. One of them, or one for sure, because I've walked with him, kind of with the other one, that if they were sitting here today, they would tell you that they don't walk slow. I think all 3 of us technically prefer a slow method. We're walking and looking, and when we feel like we're in an area, but Waylon Janoshik
finds a lot of sheds,
and Ryan Rasmussen walk fast, and they pick up tons of sheds. But their style is cover ground, and down they go. And I can't knock them for it because they pick up some.
How many times are they rewalking? Do you know?
I don't know. But I would say that Waylon really amazes me because as fast as he does walk, I don't feel like when I've gone back to places where he's been that I'm finding anything.
He's also a taxidermist.
Yeah,
and his dogs are really impressive too.
Yeah, but I mean,
he finds a lot with his dogs.
But I'm dual now because I think those guys, I don't think they care about a small antler, so I think they figure that if it's big enough, they're gonna see it either way. And so I'll walk through what I think is junk or there's not the majority of the deer there fast, and I spend all of my time. Like if it's a travel area, I'm just blowing through it, and then I'm spending my time where I feel like the majority of the deer are.
I think you're saying they're walking fast any of it.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I've been with Waylon, and he okay, you go here and I'll go here. He's all the way down 10 times faster than me.
I would say the only downfall to what I'm saying, I think I strain myself some as far as like when when you look at something for too long and it just doesn't look all that right anymore. When you take a break and look around and stuff, you almost are looking so hard that just nothing really sticks out anymore. So I'd say that would be a downfall of my method. But
one of the things that I think, kind of going back to what we were just talking about, though, that you mentioned, and that is you haven't trained your eye. I believe I've done it, and that is picked up an antler or take an antler out there with you that you've got, a buddy has one or something like that. Throw it out. Don't throw it very far because I've lost the antlers that I pitched one in a cornfield one time because I wanted to see how hard it was going to be to find it. And it took me like 20 minutes to find it, and I threw it out there 20 yards from me. And I'm like, you got to be, it's right freaking here. And I'm zigzagging all over the place, and I knew that antler was there.
Yeah.
So, but I think that can be a tremendous way to help start training your eye.
Just every day to start. Waylon does that every time, doesn't he?
I think so.
He throws a shed out, he goes and finds it, and then that kind of gives you like
it's in your brain.
Yeah.
What does Waylon do when he finds an antler? Does he spend a lot more time right there in that area, or does he just keep going?
I don't know, like whether he circles and starts to try to find the other half, or
or like I know me personally. And so now this is really interesting, actually, now that I think about this with your method, is I know, so what keeps me going when I'm shed hunting is that I'll hit an area, and in my head, I think it's the same as throwing one out there, there is an antler here. Like I'll do freaking spins around a tree coming from the other way and doing all kinds of stupid stuff. And usually I find one. And so then it makes me wonder if the stuff that I'm thinking is not worth it, if there's an antler there too. I'm just not convincing myself enough that there is and taking that time. But I do find most of the time, seems like once I find an antler or two, at least here in Iowa, there's a few more in that general area nearby, like within a few hundred yards. It seems like to me for the most part. So I'd be curious to know if Waylon, when he finds one, does he just keeps on trucking, or he says, okay, there's probably been some more deer right here in this area, and he blows through that real quick.
I think if he finds one that's significant enough, something that he feels like, oh, I'd like to find the match to this, then he kind of zigzags and circles around and does that kind of thing.
But you don't think it's because deer are just spending time in that area in
I don't
general?
know. I would have to ask him, but like I said, my hat's off to those two guys because they're the only two I've met that pick up the number of antlers that they do walking as fast as they do, because they definitely that's the method.
I know somebody else that walks really fast and doesn't find anything.
Who? Me?
Mm-mm. Very connected to you though, but I'm not gonna say a name here.
That's just wrong.
Who?
Yeah.
She doesn't walk fast.
Oh, every time that she's ever gone with me, she is in the spot that I want to go to before I even can get anywhere. Like she is.
But that's
she
just 'cause
walks
she's
on a line to get
cutting
wherever she
stuff
wants to
off.
go. She's like, "Phoom." I'm like, okay, well, so much for me taking my time to get there because she's already walking everything.
When Waylon walks like that, though, will he like circle back and walk everything really
think so,
fast?
yeah.
Okay, so he's covering a lot of it.
Yeah, he's
then,
still
okay.
covering. I mean, because he's going quick enough, he has time to
Yeah.
come back and go through something, and
Mhm.
I mean,
so he does
cruises.
rewalk, I think.
Yeah, and he's thorough, man. I mean,
So
because
let's
he found the first of Junior, you remember, and that was way over on the other side of the farm,
yeah.
but he was like, you guys should find the other one, it should be. So I knew he had zigzagged through there and stuff like that.
With that kind of partner is nice because you know that you could take them and you don't have to worry about what they walked.
Yeah, I would hate walking with Waylon, though.
He's finding them all before you do.
Covering, yeah, or I have to match his pace, and
Yeah.
it takes the fun out of it for me.
Well, this is something that I recognize that I do. You find an antler. Now, the same year, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back and it's hard for me to continue. I'm like, I should go somewhere else where I haven't looked yet, as opposed to going back there if I didn't find the other side or whatever. But the next year, I'll catch myself looking in the same spot where I had found an antler. I'm like,
Oh, I do it all the time.
I'm going to go down here and I'm going to go hit underneath that cedar bush thinking there'll be one laying there.
Sometimes it's legit, though.
Sometimes it does. I mean,
Or at least in
General
that area.
I think it's really consistent.
absolutely.
Really consistent.
If the food, if all those things we talked about with snow and food and whatever type of terrain I mean, like I would tell you that there's a farm that borders ours. All the sheds are there every year.
Yep.
There's a bunch of them there, and they're always going to be there. That place lends to the bedding area for those deer, and then they're coming to the food. And then we're fortunate to have a few places like that ourselves, where we have where the deer stay, and then they go out to feed, or vice versa.
Well, we used to have one farm that that one was like ridiculous. How many times you just drive on the 4-wheeler to get back to the timber, and I picked up like 10 just driving back there because they had all the food.
And that was all the edges.
Yep.
And what Easton's talking about is that was a farm that we don't it's sold, so we lost permission to hunt there, but it had fingers, and everything was agriculture and then timber in those fingers, so there was tons of edges. I mean, it's almost like a brownie pan. They make brownie pans that have more edges. If you have a farm like that, you have more possibility. I feel like edges are probably the number one place where we see that transitional grass. If that is a food that the deer are eating, that is, I don't know what it is, what sucks the antlers off their head, because you would think it wouldn't matter, other than are they bedding there at night when they're feeding and stuff like that.
I'm wondering if it's time. Like, how are you looking for somewhere that they can walk through something and something's going to cause them to drop their antler, like jumping a fence, walking through cedars? Or are you just going somewhere where it's flat out they are spending 90% of their time there right now? I would say time.
I think it's just you can find them there.
Really?
Because I think that we personally, you walk the fence line because you don't want to walk the cornfield. There's probably just as many in the cornfield, but you don't, on the fence line, you can see them. Why do we find them in the waterways all the time? Because we actually walk the waterways or we cover the waterways. I don't think they're spending significantly more time in just the waterway.
Yeah, but that general area right there would say that they're spending more time in that area. That's why there's so many sheds there, as opposed to somewhere that, like I was talking about, the thick cedars.
Yeah,
because there's no reason for that. It's just their antlers are falling off. There's nothing knocking them off or them shaking them off or something maybe, but they're spending the majority of their time there.
If someone had a farm, and let's just say there's a fence right down the middle of it, and on one side is the food, on the other side is the bedding, and it's beans or whatever, so it's wide open, but the deer are feeding in this field, and they're going back and bedding over here, and the farmer told you, I have 2 of you that want to hunt here. You pick, you're here first, so you can actually pick. Do you want to hunt the bedding side or you want to hunt the feed side?
Hunting or shed hunting?
Shed hunting.
I'll probably pick the bedding.
I'm taking the bedding, not because I think there's more antlers there, because it's more fun.
Okay.
I'm taking the bedding because I think they're going to spend the majority of their time there.
See, and I'm probably going to take the feed side because I just think that they're there more in the wintertime. What you were just saying, that they're there more often, that they're bedding even where they're feeding and things like that, and hopefully that they drop there.
Well, that's why I'm saying that I would think they're going out there, and they're feeding throughout the evening, but in the night. But then every other time, they have nothing else to do right now. So I'd be going to where they're hanging out in their bedding area.
And I'm praying you guys are wrong, because the one deer that I'd like to find the sheds to this year, I have the feeding area. I don't have the bedding area. I need them to drop.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I think there's just a good chance that they're out there in the feeding. Yep. I just personally, it's more fun to me to
to walk the timber.
The bedding. Yeah, yep. I think. Well, so
that
I think that the Big Ten.
Big Ten.
Oh,
I think this is something to be really interesting, because you guys are both the same on this. You guys won't shed on anything that you can't hunt. And why is that?
Well, wait a minute. I'll clarify that though. That's not necessary.
Well, he just hunted with us the other day.
Yeah, no, I'll go with us the other day. And I'll do that, and I'll give you guys the antlers. So that's kind of our unwritten rule. If we're looking for an antler on a place, and let's just say Nick is the guy that invited us to come over, then Nick gets to keep the sheds.
Yep.
If we're looking for a place that Easton has, then we're looking for Easton sheds, and I don't mind going and helping someone do that. I don't care to go look for sheds. We know some people and are unbelievable shed hunters, find some great ones. One gentleman hunts or shed hunts a lot of parks, things like that. To me, why would I do that? Because I can't hunt those deer. Now, where I'm saying that I'm a little bit different, not only would I walk the place that I can hunt, if I could shed hunt places around where I hunt, I would love to do that, to tell me that those deer are alive that way as well. Meaning, I'm looking for antlers that mean something, that give me some kind of information for next year.
So walking up on some random place that you can't hunt and walking up on a 70-inch antler with a drop tine, it doesn't do anything for you?
I think it's cool, but I don't care nearly as much as if I were to find a 60-inch antler of a deer I've watched for the whole summer, or I've had him come by me 10 times and I passed him. I don't see any benefit in that whatsoever, besides the fact that it's cool. That's it. Other than that, you're not going to ever hunt him. You don't know what deer it is. And to be honest, you probably took it from somebody else. So why?
You can take it from anybody else. If you have permission, it's fair.
It's fair
nobody
game,
else owns the deer.
Mine is time. Mine is time. And what I mean by that is I need as much information to help me with my own deer hunting for next year. And that I'm way better off, because the other thing, and I think all of us agree on this, there isn't a better time during the year to scout than when you're out shed hunting. I mean, the trails show up.
I mark so much stuff.
The scrapes, the rubs, you learn so much. So I'm wasting my time when I'm looking over here where I can't apply any of that. I'm spending good quality time. Just the other day when I was walking a farm, and it was early, and I'm trying to see if I can pick up a shed in there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to move a stand. This has to come over here. I need to make this change. I need to make this change. I'm not doing that. I don't have time to go walk as all those other places. I'm not saying that I wouldn't enjoy picking up that shed, but I really need to focus on what I have in front of me.
See, that's where I must just be so weird. Because if you told me that I could go and find an 80-inch antler, an 80-inch 5-point side off of a deer I know, or an 80-inch 5-point sight off of a deer I've never seen in my life, I'd take the one I've never seen in my life.
Why would you do that?
Because that's what makes me go to all of these new places, and what makes me walk so much is, in my mind, there is an absolute slammer just waiting for me to find, and I have no idea what's there. That's what makes me so excited about every new piece I walk, is I don't know what's there. Like, honestly, if I had the time and I could, I would probably try to walk all new places every single year, because to me is, I think, part of what keeps me interested and keeps me able to go 10 miles a day is the fact that I'll walk through a piece and I'm like, oh my God, this looks great. I'm finding rubs and scrapes, and I'm intrigued with how the property looks, or the terrain. And then every antler that I see, my heart like is thumping, because I'm like, what is it? You know, unless I know it's a dink, but if I can tell that it's a decent antler, my heart gets going crazy. Like, I'm on borderline almost more crazy about freaking shed hunting than I am shooting deer, which is crazy, I know. But my heart gets going, where I feel like on all of our other stuff, if I know, I can look over and I probably already know what deer it is, but I also know what the max potential is of that place. Would I be happy with finding either one? Absolutely. But if you told me I can go find one I've never seen, or I can find one that I know, I'm taking one I've never seen. This one I have a pretty good idea what it is already, and it'd be really cool to have it, but I kind of know what it is. This one I've never seen. It's just it's a mystical object just waiting for me to find.
Yeah, but when you think about, too, how cool it is when you found a certain deer sheds multiple years and then you end up killing him and you have his sheds, that completely wipes out, if on a random.
To you.
I don't.
To you it
see,
does.
That part I could just give you the respect of, if that's your thing. The part that I was telling you about that I don't like, of like going to shed hunt somewhere else, is the fact of, I know me, if I have permission somewhere and I hunt it really hard, whatever, it's not my land. I just have permission. The farmer's nice enough to let me hunt there. And somebody else just comes there to shed hunt stuff and ruins it for me, and goes in there way before I could ever go in there, because I'm not anticipating that they're going to be in there, because they don't ever hunt there, and then finds the sheds of deer that I've been hunting for years, and I'm like, oh, that'd be really cool to go find this. I think that flat out just takes away from whoever is hunting there, and I don't agree with it, in the fact of, what, go shed hunt your own places. And the reason I say that at you is because you shed hunt tons of different places, and I think that you are protective as crap over deer.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
I am by far the least protective at this point. I would tell you a few years ago, that's absolutely false. I would tell you a few years ago, I would agree with you that I was before, but the last few years, I really don't care. I've had several deer that got killed, and I don't give a shit.
What the deer you killed this year, if somebody would have went in there and killed it, you would not have been happy.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
If they have permission, they have every right to shoot that deer.
You are being way more rational right now than you normally are.
That is not true. That is not true. I completely disagree with you. I also
hold
disagree
on.
with you. If you don't have exclusive permission, I think it's ludicrous that you'd be upset at somebody else that it was given permission by the farmer to go through there and pick up sheds. Because the only way that you can say that is you're saying they're your deer.
No,
they're not your deer. That guy has every right to go in there and find antlers. What if he's been shed hunting it longer than you've had permission to hunt it?
It's not necessarily about the fact of if he has permission or not, or if I have permission or not. It's the fact of why, like, I genuinely think it's cool for somebody else to, if they have permission somewhere, that they're going and they get to see a deer year to year. I would, even myself, if I went to shed hunt somewhere else and I picked up a freaking 75 or 80-inch shed or something, and somebody knew exactly what deer it was, and they've experienced that deer and they've been around it and they've been trying to hunt it and stuff, and I cranked a shed from him, I would feel bad about that, because I have no reason to go do it. Why would I? Because I'm not hunting there. The only thing I'm doing is going to take the antlers. That's it.
Because it's about what it means to you. So to them, they may not give a shit about trying to kill the deer. What would you rather them be hunting it too?
Yeah, actually.
So you would rather deal with more people and more pressure than somebody walking through and shed hunting something?
No, I'd probably find somewhere else. But I would much rather have somebody that I know is in the area that hunts it too, that I know is probably going to go in there and shed hunt. Because one, what that does too is I can talk to them, and I can go shed hunt with them, or they can come with me. And yeah, they might take the shed or I might take the shed, but that way we both get to see what deer is still there, what deer I've found, what we haven't found. We know when somebody's been in there. We could coordinate, hey, I'm going to stay out of here, and we should stay out of here for another month so that we can make sure that as many deer as we can drop here. There's tons of benefits to being able to have that.
So you think there should be an unwritten rule that I can only, or anybody else should only shed hunt properties that they hunt?
No, I don't think there should be an unwritten rule.
But that's what you're saying. Is if there's anybody else that hunts it.
I don't think there should be an unwritten rule, but I don't agree with it. Like, I would never do it myself.
So if there's not an unwritten rule, then how do you not?
Because not everybody's going to agree with that.
That's his opinion.
Not everybody's going to agree with that.
What I guess I would like to point out is one of the reasons why. So you're shed hunting for the sheer enjoyment of finding that shed.
Absolutely.
I'm shed hunting because it's a tool. It's knowledge.
Well, why shouldn't I be able to do that?
I'm not saying you shouldn't.
There's people too that shed hunt that don't even hunt. Period.
Yeah. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to do that. I'm just telling you that with all of everything that we have going on, we need that knowledge. We need that information. We need to know what we're going to do with stands and what we're going to do with a food plot, and a lot of that can come from what we see at this time of year. So I spend that time doing that.
You want that information. You don't necessarily need it.
I would disagree with that. You don't need it to be successful, but it sure does help you. The more knowledge you have, the more resources you have in your pocket to be able to be more successful. That's with anything in life.
I don't know that you could say, I think that you can go and kill deer without having walked stuff in February.
I just said that. I said you could be successful either way, but
I'm just saying, I don't know that you're saying that you need it. I feel as though you're saying that if you go and take a shed, that's taking from what you need to be able to kill that deer. If somebody, and it's not take a shed, somebody else finds a shed where they're able to go.
He's not saying that. He's saying that he walks the places he's walking because it gives him the information he needs to be able to hunt with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I get excited when I get excited when I see the sheds. I love finding them.
Because we also have deer that will shed on us that aren't even there during hunting season.
And that's why I said I would hunt. I would love to be able to shed hunt properties that adjacent to where I think my deer, that a place that they could go.
So then, is that okay?
What?
So if
I know what, hold on.
I'm just asking.
I know, but here's what I want to say is I agree with Easton on the part that I wish that we could get more neighbors to share trail camera photos, to share sheds, and to have just more conversation, because I think it would help us all. I mean, understanding, and I'm not mad at the guy for killing the big deer, not at all. I just would like to know,
so I can
mark him off the list. Or when I'm trying to figure out, why did this deer move in here? Why is so-and-so just – I got a deer now that's running all over the place. And, man, that's crazy because I've never seen this deer before. Well, the reason he moved in is because X deer is gone. He got killed or,
so it helps everybody for what?
Knowledge.
For understanding of what's going on in that area.
As far as what, though?
As far as what the deer are doing.
Well, for me, it would be for hunting.
But so how does it help everybody? What is it that it's helping do? Is it helping get deer to an age structure? Is it knowing what deer, where they're traveling to? What is it that it helps everybody do?
It's knowledge, knowing where your deer are going, what your deer are doing, why a young deer is coming over here, a big deer is going over there.
I'm asking because you're the only one that has neighbors, really. I mean, like you own ground and have neighbors. Right. So what is, when you're saying that it helps everybody, what is it helping everybody do?
So same thing. If we kill a deer, sometimes now in our situation, typically ours is kind of public because of the nature of our business, but not every doe or anything like that. So if a neighbor knew that we just killed 9 does out of this area, maybe if he's going to take his son hunting, I should go on the other side of the farm, or I should go hunt over here because they've shot a lot of the does. And I don't want to kill all the does from the same area. I want to keep enough here. Maybe it's that they want to kill a certain buck, or he's seen a buck he wants his son to shoot, or a buck he wants to shoot, and we've already killed it. Or we could tell him that deer's over here. You're not going to see him right now. I've got pictures of him yesterday here. And then you can start to put the dots together to understand. I guess I'm just at that point in my life where the most information that I can have, I would like to have. Not necessarily is it all for me either. I mean, it would be beneficial for them. I would share with them.
So what about the neighbor that's shooting 3-year-olds?
What about him? I just would like to know.
Are you going to share information with him?
Yeah. I would be able to tell him it is a 3-year-old, just so you know. You know, and yes, would I like you to let him go? Yes. If you shoot him, it's okay. I just want to know if you shoot him. That's it.
But that's coming from a neighbor that would be cooperative. Ones that aren't being cooperative, what's the point in sharing information when they don't share anything back either?
Yeah,
you're not benefiting anybody.
It has to be a reciprocal. You know, it has to be both ends. And I'll use Ryan. Ryan is my neighbor of my house, and me and him share everything. You know, we know what deer are walking around. He knows I don't hold anything back from him. He gets to see it, whatever trail cam. If he contacts me, says, "Have you seen this deer?" Because we don't share every deer, just because
some of them don't.
I mean, we don't even think about it. But then all of a sudden he sees it and he's like, "Hey, do you know this deer?" "Oh yeah, I've had pictures of him before," or "No, I've never seen him before." And we share that kind of information, and that helps. I mean, I think it helps him and helps me. I mean, for sure, like he went in and targeted a deer this year that they ended up taking out, was a deer that we feel needed to be taken out. You know, so it helps when people work together, without a doubt.
Yeah, but I think that unless you do it like the juries or somebody else, what are the odds that you're ever going to have a place where every neighbor is that way?
I think in Iowa, you'd be surprised how many guys are managing their farms. Whether they're managing them for 5-year-olds, whether they're managing them for big racks, whether they're managing them for numbers.
Well, so because now I think we're talking about two different things.
Yeah,
if you're saying managing, you're talking about trying to get deer to a certain age structure, right?
That's not necessarily
true.
Hold
on. What is the point here? What are you trying to get at?
As what I hear is saying, sharing all this information, and it includes sheds, right? That you need to work with all your neighbors, and everybody needs to be working in unison.
Well, you're also making it like it's a necessity.
No, I'm saying
it's a benefit.
I'm not.
In a perfect world, yes, I'd love to have that.
It's a benefit to your personal goals,
and
it may not be.
Yeah, it is.
No, because you may have your neighbor may not give a shit about shooting a 120-inch 3-year-old or
no one is telling.
It's simply a tag, so he may not care at all about. Which we have neighbors like that too.
That's not no. What we're saying is that if we all can work together, it's nice to know. It doesn't matter what your goal is or not, especially when you're talking about a goal too. If something like if you're shooting a lot of does in a certain parcel of land, you should probably spread that out a little bit. And so if they don't know that you're shooting a ton there, then you're going to end up shooting all your does in one area. There's all sorts of different goals, whether it be a 5-year-old deer, a big deer, a specific deer.
All that only matters if you care about those certain things. If somebody doesn't really care about the quality of the deer, then their goal is to shoot a deer, period. So that information benefits you guys, but it doesn't help them.
I'm not asking them to give me that information. If I have something to offer, if I have something to offer them, and they have something to offer me, the sharing information is beneficial. But if they don't have anything, your point here is invalid when it comes to shed hunting. When it comes to shed hunting, we're referring to different. You're going somewhere else and taking somebody else's information or somebody else's time and work and their enjoyment. And some places, you can go there. It doesn't matter if you take it because they don't give a crap. Great, wonderful. I'm just saying in my personal experience, a place I have permission, the guy that is hunting there too that has permission and finds a certain shed, I'm going to be much more like, heck yeah, man, that's awesome. And especially if he sends me a picture of it and be very appreciative of that, as opposed to some guy that I have no idea why they're even out there. They just come out there to shed hunt and then they have all the deer. Because I do think, or they have all the antlers. And great, you have just as much permission to do that as I do. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm flat out saying I don't necessarily agree with that because I would never do that to somebody else. I wouldn't go do that because I'm putting myself in my own position of what I would appreciate and wouldn't appreciate. So it's not about having to have an unwritten rule or doing this or doing that or whatever. It's about thinking about yourself, thinking about not being so selfish to go walk and take somebody else's stuff.
Well, I think that's the question, is which one's selfish? Because yours could be selfish as well, saying that because I'm hunting here, I should get to also find sheds, and then nobody else should go and walk.
It's not if I find the shed or not. You're not listening to that part.
No, I am. It's because it's what you're justifying it with, which is the fact that in your mind, since you're spending time putting trail cameras out there and you're hanging stands and you're doing all that work, that you're more entitled to those antlers than somebody else that just has permission to go and walk it for shed hunting.
I wouldn't say entitled, but I don't understand why they'd be out there to shed hunt in the first place.
What
Because
benefit?
they enjoy shed hunting.
I guess, but I mean, I don't know why you'd shed hunt unless you just like to have bones in your house. I mean,
That's exactly why I shed hunt.
no, you like the size of them and everything, and you like to be able to find the different kinds of them.
Yeah,
And
I
you
love how
also
unique
hunt,
they
too.
all are and how interesting they are to me. Every antler to me is interesting for the most part.
I enjoy shed hunting a lot too, but I just don't see like I don't know. I struggle with I wouldn't be able to walk somewhere knowing that I'm, especially if I found a 90-inch shed or something. Oh, whoever's
there's
hunting
someone
there, somebody has been looking for
for
that freaking antler left and right. They've probably known the deer for a long time, and you just strolled right on in. Like, I don't give a crap about you or anybody else that hunts it or anybody else that knows this deer. I'm gonna walk in here and I'm gonna grab this shed and go me.
Okay, two things then with that. One, who has a much better chance to find that antler?
I don't know.
the person who hunts there.
The person who hunts there. He's got pictures and everything else. If I don't have any pictures of that, I don't know the guy that hunts it. I don't know where he's got his cameras or anything else. And I find that antler, how am I deliberately doing anything offensive to that guy?
You got lucky. You got in the right
Absolutely
place at the right
got
time.
lucky.
The ones that I think that is kind of cool to see is my deer this year. Never met the guy, never talked to him, nothing. And I've never found that deer's antlers or anything. He's given me the antlers, the match set, because he's found them before because
Yeah.
he thinks it should stick with the deer.
And I've given people antlers before. And I'll tell you right now, on places I have permission, if I knew the guy that killed the deer and it was a decent deer, depending on the size, I'll be 100% honest. If it's an 80-inch antler,
Yeah, you ain't giving it.
I ain't giving it up because I've walked 700 miles to find that antler.
Yeah, and I see that.
If
That's where I
it's-
disagree because even like
I don't
your
know
deer,
that you would even give up an 80.
100% I would because you have deer right now that somebody's giving you the sheds to that are either insanely unique that you'll never ever find again or big sheds.
I've
Okay,
also
hold
given
on.
people antlers that are big and unique too.
No,
Because
you would never give one. You would never give away a bully shed.
Yeah, I would.
No, you wouldn't. You talk about how much
That-
you love that antler.
That one 3-point antler, yeah, I would. That's up to them. Like there's certain antlers I've given up before, and I
I'd
would
like
do it
to
again
see
if
'em.
there's a 5-point antler that's 70-inch antler. I'd give that up.
All right,
all right.
that's good.
Well, I think I have another comment, but I'm going to leave it because I
No.
feel like we've hammered it.
Say it.
Well, my point would be if you're honest, you'll answer this honestly, and that is, you said I'm all for the guy or gal who goes out and kills a big deer. But whether I got if they do it legally and ethically, and they kill the deer that we've been chasing, he's the man, he's the deer. It's harder to do that, to be as happy for that person when they just stroll in and get lucky. The dude that's hunting hard, that's putting in the time and the effort. We've all been in that situation where there's a particular deer we're trying to kill, neighbor kills him. Awesome, man, because the neighbor was working just as hard as we were. We're super happy. If the neighbor had a friend that just showed up for a day, that had no clue, he just went out and sat down somewhere, it would be like, gosh dang. I'm not that I'm upset at the person, but I don't think that person deserved that. And if you sit here and tell me you don't agree
So
with
what
that,
are you you're asking if I would?
no, what he's stating is you're doing the same thing by shed hunting places that other people are hunting.
No, is what I'm. If you're saying that would I be a little disappointed that deer is gone?
Right.
Into that specific individual? Absolutely. Agree with you 100%. However, I would never tell you that I feel as though that they're taking something from me.
No,
That's what I feel as though Easton's saying is that you, since that guy didn't come in and put up cameras and was hunting that all the time, that he shouldn't be shooting that deer there because he's taking from me or from that other guy. His buddy should shoot that. I disagree with that 150%.
You're also putting words in my mouth that I'm possessing the deer.
Yeah,
I'm not
he's not
possessing
saying
anything
that.
whatsoever. Anybody has the right to go do anything.
You're
that
saying
I'm
that
doing.
you don't think that it's okay to go walk places just for permission.
Would you listen for once in your life?
I
I have
did
sat
listen.
out and
Here
sat
we
here
go.
and said, I would not do that myself. It's not right. It's not wrong. I would not do it because I don't want to take away from somebody else, whether they have permission there or they own it or whatever else. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that they can't do it to me. I possess these deer, whatever. They possess their deer. It's first off, it's a wild animal. So whether you own the land or not, nobody's possessing the deer.
Well, that's what I think is the thing is I am listening to you, and you're not listening to yourself because what you keep saying is take. Okay, that is what I disagree with. It's not that you're saying whether it's right or wrong. It's you believe clearly with what you're stating that you're taking something from somebody else. And I disagree. I don't believe that it is taking
situation.
anything.
When
from
you
I'll
pick
use
that-
a
when
different
When you
verb.
pick up a shed and you take it,
You're
took
taking
it.
it. I mean,
Took it home. It doesn't come back. It's not like you're going to go look. I
I'll
found
Yeah,
a shed.
absolutely. I took it from the woods. I didn't take it from Easton.
no, but
I
I'll
didn't take it from
reword.
anybody else.
I acquired a bone that fell off of a deer's head, and I then put it in my vehicle and kept it in my possession till I got home. That's
So
what I did.
Here, all right. So let me ask you this: what if I walked your place that you had permission on, and I found an antler to a deer that you've never seen? Is that one going to bother you?
I'm probably never gonna know about it.
Let's just say you did. Let's say you ran into me on the way out, and I have a 75-inch antler, and you've never seen that deer. Are you going to be upset?
I wouldn't be upset, but I'd be like,
Or-
shoot, I could have found that sucker. That would have been really cool.
Okay. Now let's say I found a 65-inch one from a deer you knew. Is that one going to bother you more?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's just telling you how he
That's
feels.
fine. Yeah, I know.
That's
It's-
all.
You're upset that I don't agree with what you do.
No, I'm
That's your
just-
only issue here.
No, I'm just trying to make sure that it's framed in the right way of whether it's taking
No,
something.
see,
or not.
you're trying to make it me wrong and you right, and I'm
No.
not trying to say you're right or wrong. I'm saying what I don't agree with, and
Right,
you're trying to frame it so I look like I'm wrong.
No, I'm not.
That's exactly what you're doing.
That's not
Okay.
true.
You're
but-
failing miserably. It's okay.
Well, I think that if you, I don't know how the controversy gets into every single one of them, but it does. Some of the things that I hope that we have given people is some ideas on how that they can go help themselves find sheds.
Courtesy. That's what I was looking for.
Courtesy.
Courtesy to others.
Well, I mean, I agree with you on that one. But I understand where both are coming from. Like I said, my whole philosophy is different because mine is about doing what we do here and honing in on that. So, but I hope that you guys were listening when we were talking about, not wearing sunglasses, sun at your back. Wet days are better than worn like sunny days. We give you're going to have to find out what your favorite thing is. That helps you with where you're looking for sheds.
Try different ones. That's I'm gonna try walking
Yeah.
fast now and see if I can find more that way.
and see if you can cover more ground. But here's the thing: anytime you spend outside is good information. So regardless of whether you're walking someone else's ground or whether you're walking your own, at least you'll know what their deer are doing over there, and you're not hunting them. But so there's information to be found and to be had. That's one of the greatest things. We haven't talked almost any about shed dogs, and one of the things that the gentleman that trained our dog, Jeremy Moore, told me, he was like, here's what a shed dog will do for you, whether they pick up all the sheds or not, because that's what everyone wants to know. Is that dog now going to go out and find, I'm going to double the amount of sheds I find because he's covering way more ground than me. And he's like, you're going to double the amount of sheds you find because you're going to take him more often. You got someone to go with you. And
Yep.
and then hopefully the dog finds them. So that's what we're hoping you get out of this podcast today, is that you think it's worth going. It's worth going out and seeing if I can find one. And I hope you do. And we want to hear from you if you do. We want to hear from how many miles you walked and you still haven't found one, or you found the Mecca, you found 20 sheds in a day or something like that. It is a whole nother art. It is a whole nother piece of hunting. I know why Warren loves it the way he does, because it's that fun. I mean, your heart gets racing when you see one laying on the ground. I think maybe the thing that I love the most about that part, putting it into terms, is that animal's still there, as opposed to when you shoot one, he's not there anymore. But when you find that shed, not only is he there, hopefully he's there, and he might get bigger.
We
So
can see what he does next
Yep.
year.
So with that, you guys got anything else to add?
I think it was a good one.
Yeah, I think it was a good podcast today as well. So
Let us know your thoughts.
yeah,
What do you think?
we'd like to hear whose side you take. We can put out a survey monkey and see which ones are you on Easton's side or Warren's side or neither, or do you have a view of your own? So again, thanks for the reviews. Thanks for reaching out and showing your friends, telling your friends, and for those of you that have been sneaking and watching the podcast and haven't joined, make sure
Followed
you
it.
followed.
Gosh, your terminology.
Okay, I don't know why. Please comment in on how rude they are to their father. So that
We're just trying to help people make sure they get the correct information.
All right, so follow the podcast. And if you haven't, then you're a pirate. I know that's the right. Yes, you're pirating. You're just watching it, and you're not part
That's
of
not
it.
what pirating.
It is.
It is. It's all right. If they're pirating it, it's free anyway.
It's
so
not for any money. You guys know where I'm coming from. You meant what I knew. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. The Raised Hunting Podcast
And
is
listening.
out.